I was on my knees, my mother-in-law's fingers twisted in my hair, my brother-in-law's boot connecting with my ribs. They called me worthless, a burden. But when my husband walked through that door, what happened next made them all wish they'd never touched me. This is my story. If you've ever felt invisible in your own life, stay with me. What happens next will remind you that karma is real. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. You won't want to miss how this ends. I never thought my life would turn into a nightmare. When I married David 3 years ago, I believed I was stepping into a fairy tale. He was everything I'd ever dreamed of, kind, successful, and deeply in love with me. We met at a charity fundraiser where I was volunteering, serving food to guests. He was one of the donors, a billionaire businessman who could have ignored someone like me completely. But he didn't. He saw me. He talked to me. He made me feel like I mattered. Our love story was beautiful. We dated for 8 months before he proposed on a beach at sunset, with red roses scattered everywhere and tears in his eyes. I said yes without hesitation. I thought I knew what I was getting into. I thought his family would eventually accept me. I was so wrong. From the moment I stepped into the mansion as David's wife, his mother, Patricia, made it clear that I wasn't welcome. She looked at me like I was dirt on her expensive marble floors. She never called me by my name. It was always that girl or her, said with so much venom that it made my skin crawl. His younger brother Kevin wasn't any better. He treated me like a joke, like I was some kind of gold digger who'd trapped his brother for money. The mansion itself was like something out of a magazine. Crystal chandeliers hung from every ceiling. The floors were polished so perfectly you could see your reflection. There were rooms I wasn't even allowed to enter, but for all its beauty, that house felt like a prison. Every day I woke up in that enormous bedroom, David's side of the bed always empty because he was traveling for business, and I felt smaller and smaller. My daily routine was exhausting. I'd wake up at 5 in the morning to prepare breakfast for Patricia and Kevin. Patricia liked her tea a specific way. Not too hot, not too cold, with exactly 2 sugar cubes and a slice of lemon on the side. If I got it wrong even by a little bit, she'd pour it down the sink right in front of me and make me do it again. Kevin would sit at the breakfast table scrolling through his phone, occasionally looking up to make some snide comment about how I'd buttered his toast wrong or how the eggs weren't fluffy enough. I wore simple clothes because anything nice I tried to wear, Patricia would criticize. She'd say I was trying too hard or that I looked ridiculous pretending to be something I wasn't. So I stuck to plain white blouses and gray skirts, clothes that made me blend into the background. Meanwhile, Patricia wore designer dresses that cost more than most people's cars, and Kevin strutted around in expensive suits like he owned the world, which, technically, his family did. David was rarely home. His business empire required constant attention, constant travel. London 1 week, Tokyo the next, then Dubai, then New York. He'd call me when he could, asking how I was doing, telling me he missed me. I wanted to tell him the truth. I wanted to tell him that his mother had made me re-wash the dishes 3 times because she claimed they weren't clean enough. I wanted to tell him that Kevin had accidentally spilled coffee on me and then laughed about it. But whenever I opened my mouth to say something, he'd mention how tired he was, how stressful the negotiations were, and I'd swallow my words. I didn't want to be another burden. The abuse escalated slowly, like water slowly coming to a boil. At first, it was just words. Patricia would comment on my appearance, saying I looked tired or that I'd gained weight. She'd criticize my cooking even though I followed recipes perfectly. She'd tell the maids to redo work I'd already done just to humiliate me. Kevin would bring his girlfriend over, a model named Tiffany who wore bright red dresses and expensive perfume, and they'd sit in the living room making jokes about me while I served them drinks. They'd laugh about how David had married down, how I must have tricked him somehow. I remember one particular afternoon when Patricia sat me down in the study. The room smelled like old leather and expensive cologne. She looked at me with those cold gray eyes and said, "You've been married to my son for 3 years and still no grandchild. What use are you exactly?" Her words cut deeper than any knife. The truth was, David and I had talked about children, but with him always gone, it just hadn't happened yet. But I couldn't explain that to her. She wouldn't have cared anyway. I tried reaching out to David more desperately as things got worse. I'd call him during his meetings, but he'd text back saying he'd call later. Later never came. Or when it did, he'd be so exhausted that our conversations lasted 5 minutes before he fell asleep. I started to wonder if he even cared. I started to wonder if I'd made a terrible mistake marrying into this family. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening. I remember it was Tuesday because Patricia had her book club every Tuesday, and she'd been in an especially foul mood all day preparing for it. She'd brought out her prized possession, a crystal vase from France that had been in her family for generations. It was sitting on the mantel in the living room, catching the light from the chandelier above. I was dusting the room, being as careful as I possibly could, but Kevin came bounding through, chasing after his dog, a golden retriever that he let run wild through the house. The dog crashed into my legs and I stumbled backward. My elbow hit the mantel. Everything happened in slow motion. I watched the vase teeter on the edge, and then it fell. The sound of it shattering on the marble floor echoed through the entire mansion like a gunshot. I stood there frozen, staring at the pieces of crystal scattered everywhere, each one catching the light like tiny daggers. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. I heard footsteps, Patricia's heels clicking rapidly across the floor, and I knew I was in trouble. She appeared in the doorway, her face twisted with rage. "What have you done?" she screamed. Her voice was so loud that the maids came running from different parts of the house. Kevin stood behind her, his arms crossed, a smirk on his face like he was about to watch an entertaining show. I dropped to my knees immediately, trying to pick up the pieces. "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry," I kept repeating. My hands were shaking so badly that I could barely hold the fragments. One piece cut my finger, and blood dripped onto the white marble. "It was an accident." The dog, Kevin's dog, ran into me and "Don't you dare blame this on anyone else." Patricia's voice got even louder. She stormed toward me, and I could see her hands clenched into fists. "You've ruined everything since the day you stepped into this house. You're clumsy, you're useless, and you're an embarrassment to this family." I kept apologizing, kept trying to clean up, but nothing I said made any difference. Kevin laughed, actually laughed, and said, "Wow, you really can't do anything right, can you? Maybe David should trade you in for someone with a functioning brain." That's when Patricia grabbed my hair. Her fingers twisted into the strands at the back of my head, and she yanked me upward. Pain shot through my scalp, and I screamed. I grabbed at her hands, trying to make her let go, but her grip was like iron. "You're nothing," she screamed in my face. "Nothing." My son should have married someone worthy, someone from a good family, someone with class and breeding, not some charity case who can't even hold a vase properly. Tears were streaming down my face. The pain was unbearable, but worse than the physical pain was the humiliation. The maids were watching from the doorways. I could see them peeking around corners, but not one of them moved to help me. They were too afraid of Patricia to intervene. Then Kevin stepped forward. I'll never forget the look on his face. It was pure cruelty, like he was enjoying every second of my suffering. "Maybe she needs to learn her lesson," he said casually, and then he kicked me. His expensive leather shoe connected with my ribs, right below my chest, and I collapsed. Patricia finally let go of my hair, and I fell to the floor, curling into a ball, trying to protect myself. The pain was indescribable. I couldn't breathe properly. Every inhale felt like knives stabbing into my side. I could taste blood in my mouth. I must have bitten my tongue when I fell. I lay there on that cold marble floor, surrounded by pieces of broken crystal and my own blood, and I thought, this is it. This is how I die. Invisible and alone in this beautiful prison. Patricia stood over me, breathing hard, her face flushed. "Clean this mess up," she spat, "and then pack your bags. I want you out of this house by morning. I'll tell David you left on your own. He'll believe me over you." Kevin laughed again and pulled out his phone, probably to text his girlfriend about the entertainment he'd just witnessed. I closed my eyes, the tears still coming, and I prayed. I prayed for help, for escape, for anything to change. That's when I heard it. The sound of the front door opening, heavy footsteps in the entrance hall, and then a voice I knew better than my own. "What did you do?" I opened my eyes and looked up. Standing in the doorway of the living room, still holding a bouquet of red roses and a small gift box, was David, my husband. He was supposed to be in Singapore. He wasn't supposed to be home for another week. But there he was, and the expression on his face was something I'd never seen before. Complete silence fell over the room. Patricia's face went pale. Kevin actually dropped his phone. The maids disappeared from the doorways like ghosts, and I just lay there on the floor, looking up at the man I'd married, hoping he could see what had been happening to me. David's jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscles working. His eyes moved from me, broken and bleeding on the floor, to his mother, to his brother, and back to me. The roses and gift box fell from his hands, hitting the floor with soft thuds. He walked toward me slowly, and there was something terrifying about how calm he appeared. It was like watching a storm approach, deadly quiet before it destroys everything. He knelt beside me, and his hands were shaking as he reached out to touch my face. His fingers were gentle, tracing the bruise I could feel forming on my cheek. "Gertrude," he whispered, and his voice cracked. "Oh God, Gertrude." I tried to speak, but nothing came out except a sob. David's eyes filled with tears, and he carefully, so carefully, helped me sit up. Every movement hurt, but his touch was so gentle that I didn't care. He examined the cut on my finger, the way I was holding my ribs, the strands of hair that had been torn from my scalp. Then he stood up. He turned to face his mother and brother, and when he spoke, his voice was ice cold. "What did you do?" Patricia tried to compose herself. She smoothed down her dress and lifted her chin. "David, darling, you're home early. This isn't—" She broke my vase, my grandmother's vase. I was upset and— "Quiet." David's single word cut through her explanation like a blade. Patricia actually flinched. I'd never seen her react to anyone like that before. David pulled out his phone and started making calls, right there in the living room, while everyone watched. The first call was to his lawyer. "Andrew, it's David. I need you to freeze all access to the family trust fund. Yes, immediately. Patricia's accounts, all of them." He paused, listening. "I don't care what time it is. Do it now." Patricia's face went from pale to red. "You can't do this. That's my money. Your father left that for me." David ignored her and made another call. "Security? This is David. I need Kevin removed from all positions in the family businesses, effective immediately. Revoke his building access, his company credit cards, everything. Yes, tonight." Kevin's smirk disappeared. "Wait, what? You can't just—" David held up one finger, silencing him, and made a third call. "Janet? David here. I need you to list the villa on Rosewood Avenue." "Yes, Patricia's property. Market price, immediate sale." He paused. "Because I'm the one who actually owns it, and I want it sold." I watched all of this from the couch where David had gently moved me. My mind was spinning. The villa on Rosewood Avenue was Patricia's pride and joy, her private retreat where she hosted her fancy parties and entertained her society friends, and David was selling it. Patricia found her voice again. "You can't do this to me. I'm your mother. I gave birth to you, raised you, sacrificed everything for you." David finally looked at her, really looked at her, and what I saw in his eyes was something I'd never seen directed at his mother before, pure disgust. "You stopped being my mother the moment you put your hands on my wife," he said quietly. "Actually, you stopped being my mother long before that, but I wanted to give you a chance to prove me wrong." He walked over to the bookshelf and pulled down what looked like a decorative picture frame, except it wasn't just a picture frame. He turned it around, and I could see it was some kind of camera. My blood ran cold. "I've been watching," David said, pressing a button on his phone. The large television on the wall flickered to life, and suddenly, I was watching myself on the screen. It was from last week. Patricia was criticizing my cooking, making me taste the soup over and over while she told me it was disgusting. The audio was crystal clear. Kevin appeared on screen, dumping his entire plate in the trash and saying, Even the dog wouldn't eat this garbage." Patricia's face went white. David pressed another button, and another video played. This one was from the entrance hall, showing Patricia knocking grocery bags out of my hands and telling me I was too stupid to even shop correctly. Another button, Kevin tripping me on the stairs and laughing while I limped away. "I installed cameras throughout the house 6 weeks ago," David said. His voice was steady, but I could hear the rage underneath it. "Every room except the bedrooms and bathrooms. I've been watching. Every insult, every moment of cruelty, every single thing you've done to her." "Then why didn't you stop it?" Patricia demanded, and for the first time I heard fear in her voice. "Because I needed evidence," David said. "I needed you to show your true colors completely. For the lawyers, for the courts, for the restraining orders I'm about to file." He turned to me, and his expression softened. "Gertrude, I'm so sorry. I should have stopped this sooner. I just needed ironclad proof because I knew she'd manipulate everything if I didn't have it." I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt betrayed. He'd been watching me suffer, but another part understood. Patricia was manipulative. She was convincing. Without proof, David's word would have been against hers, and she would have twisted everything. Kevin tried to leave, heading for the door, but David's security team was already there. 2 large men in suits blocked his path. "You're not going anywhere until the police take your statement," David said. "That's assault, caught on camera. I'm pressing charges." Kevin's face went from arrogant to terrified in seconds. "You're joking." "I barely touched her. It was just—" "You kicked my wife while she was on the ground," David interrupted. "That's not a joke. That's a crime." Patricia broke down then, real tears, not the manipulative kind she usually used. She fell to her knees, reaching for David. "Please, baby, please don't do this. I'm your mother. I was just trying to protect you. She's not good enough for you, and I thought if you just what? Tortured her enough that she'd leave? You're right about one thing. This ends now." David pulled out his phone again and showed her the screen. "Restraining order, filed 20 minutes ago while I was in the car outside. You're not allowed within 500 feet of Gertrude or me. You have 2 hours to pack your essentials and leave this house." "This is my home!" Patricia screamed. "No," David said firmly. "This is my house. It's in my name. Has been since Dad died. You've been living here as my guest. That invitation is now revoked." He turned to the maids who had been watching everything from their hiding spots. "Anyone who witnessed abuse and did nothing, you're fired. Pack your things tonight. Those of you who tried to help Gertrude when no one was looking, thank you. You'll receive bonuses and recommendations for new positions." One of the younger maids, a girl named Sophie, who had occasionally snuck me extra food when Patricia starved me as punishment, burst into tears of relief. The next 2 hours were surreal. Police came and took statements. Paramedics examined my injuries: 2 bruised ribs, minor scalp trauma, a cut that needed 3 stitches. Patricia and Kevin packed their bags under the watchful eyes of security. Patricia tried several more times to manipulate David, but he remained unmoved. Kevin made threats about lawyers and lawsuits, but David's attorney shut him down immediately with folders full of evidence. When they finally left, the house felt different. Lighter. The oppressive weight that had been crushing me for 3 years seemed to lift. David locked the door behind them and turned to me. We were finally alone. He sat beside me on the couch and took my hand carefully, mindful of my injuries. "I failed you," he said quietly. "I let work consume me. I convinced myself that if I'd just built the business bigger, made more money, gave you a better life materially, that would be enough, but I left you here with them and they hurt you, and I'll never forgive myself for that." "Why didn't you tell me you knew?" I asked. My voice was hoarse from crying. "Because I needed ironclad proof," he explained. "My mother is incredibly manipulative. If I'd confronted her without evidence, she would have twisted everything. She would have made you look unstable, claimed you were lying, maybe even tried to have you committed. I've seen her destroy people before. I couldn't risk her doing that to you." He showed me his phone, folders and folders of video clips, all organized by date and severity. He'd been documenting everything, building a legal case that was impossible to defend against. "I was going to confront them next week," he said. "I had meetings with lawyers scheduled. But then I saw the footage from today and I left Singapore immediately. I took the company jet and got here as fast as I could. I just wish I'd been faster." We talked for hours that night. Really talked. For the first time in months. David told me about the pressure he'd been under, trying to expand the business while dealing with his mother's constant demands and manipulations. He told me how he'd started to notice small things, how quiet I'd become on our phone calls, how I'd lost weight, how I'd stopped talking about my day. "I knew something was wrong," he said. "But every time I asked, you said you were fine. So I installed the cameras. And what I saw..." He trailed off, his jaw clenching again. "What I saw made me physically ill. I wanted to come home immediately, but the lawyers convinced me to wait, to gather more footage, to build the strongest case possible. They said if I acted too quickly, she might get partial custody of assets, might still have legal rights to see us. I wanted her completely out of our lives." I understood, but it still hurt. "I didn't tell you because you were always so tired," I admitted. "I didn't want to be another problem you had to solve." "You're not a problem," David said fiercely. "You're my wife. You're the woman I love, and I failed to protect you. That changes now. I'm stepping back from the day-to-day business operations. I'm hiring a CEO to manage things while I focus on what actually matters. Us." 3 days later, we moved out of the mansion. David bought us a beautiful but much smaller house on the edge of the city, just big enough for 2 people and maybe, someday, a family. It had a garden where I could grow vegetables and flowers. It had big windows that let in natural light. It felt like a home, not a museum. Patricia tried to sue for grandparents' rights, even though we didn't have children yet. She tried to sue for her position in the company. She tried everything her expensive lawyers could think of, but David's evidence was overwhelming. Every lawsuit was thrown out. Kevin tried to start his own business using the family name. David sued him for trademark infringement and won. Last I heard, Kevin was working as a junior accountant somewhere, learning what it meant to actually work for a living. The legal battles took months, but we got through them together. David kept his promise. He stepped back from work. He came home every evening at 6. We had dinner together. We talked about our days. We started to heal. I still have nightmares sometimes. I'll dream that I'm back in that mansion, back on that floor with Patricia's hands in my hair. But then I wake up, and David is there, and this house is quiet and peaceful and ours. It's been 3 months now since that terrible Tuesday. 3 months since my life changed completely. I'm starting to feel like myself again. Or maybe I'm becoming someone new, someone stronger, someone who knows her worth. David is sitting across from me now as I record this story, and he's smiling at me with so much love that it makes my heart ache in the best way. We're planning a real honeymoon, just the 2 of us. No business calls, no family drama. Just us, finally getting the beginning we should have had 3 years ago. I'm telling you this story because I want you to know something important. If you're in a situation where people who should love you are hurting you instead, family, partners, anyone, please know that you deserve better. You deserve to be protected. You deserve to be valued. And sometimes the help you need comes from unexpected places, but you have to be brave enough to let people see what's really happening. I was so afraid to tell David the truth because I didn't want to be a burden. But by staying silent, I almost lost everything. Don't make my mistake. Speak up, ask for help, and if the people who should protect you won't, find someone who will. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it touched you in any way, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. I share these stories because I believe they can help someone who's going through something similar. Drop a comment below telling me what you would have